Hello, everyone. How are you? Very nice to see you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight for tonight's Vicki and Carl Zeiger Insight Seminar for Trouble in Mind. Thank you for joining us outside. Hopefully these balloon moon lamps will keep us illuminated enough. We're still trying to do this stuff. We're trying to balance some of the things that we're doing inside, outside while we're navigating this pandemic. So hopefully we are moving inside soon enough. But for now, we're going to stay kind of doing this for this round of shows. So thank you for coming, bundling up, and being a part of this. My name is Justin Waldman. I'm Associate Artistic Director here at the Old Globe. It's wonderful to see everybody again. I know some of you have joined us online for some of these, so in person is really lovely. And we have a nice intimate group, so we'll be able to ask a lot of nice questions of our amazing guest tonight, Ms. Delicia Turner-Sonnenberg, the Director for Trouble in Mind.
Hi, everybody.
We are so glad to have Delicia with us tonight. And Delicia is a big part of our family here at the Old Globe. She's a resident artist of the Old Globes. I'm going to embarrass her by giving a little bit of her bio so you guys can know a little bit about her. So, as I said, she's a resident artist of the Old Globe. Her credits here include Skeleton Crew on the Cheryl and Harvey White stage, which was gorgeous and is actually making its Broadway debut right now. Romeo and Juliet in Detroit 66 for the MFA program. And she is the founder and former artistic director of Moxie Theater Company here in San Diego, which she ran with a surety for 12 years here in San Diego. Her other directing credits include the La Jolla Playhouse, Actors Theater of Louisville, San Diego Repertory Theater, Diversionary Theater, Signet Theater, New Village Arts, where she just directed our actually one of our board members' shows, Dia Hurston's play this winter, to great acclaim. It was beautiful. And she has been awarded a lot of awards. She's a well-awarded woman, so there's not a lot of space in the old trophy case over here. She was awarded the TCG New Generations Grant. She's a Van Leer Fellow at Second Stage in New York, a Drama League Fellow, the Des Maganoff New Visions Award, and was named Director of the Year in 2015 by the San Diego Critics Circle Awards, which is the Craig Knoll Awards, named after our founder. Yeah. And she also just is a dream collaborator, and I have had such a great time working with her on this project, and we are just so lucky to have her as part of the Globe family and as a San Diegan. Everybody, that is Delicia Turner-Sonnenberg.
Hello, everybody. Justin's embarrassing me, but...
I have few skills in life, and embarrassing people is one of them. So, I usually like to start these out just because, you're new to these audiences, the audiences are new to you. I always think it's great to kind of feel where people came from, how they got to become into this life of a theater director. How did the theater bug by you?
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I was born there in 1970. And then when I was a teenager, we moved to Texas, to Houston. And I had to take an elective in my new junior high school, and I decided to, I didn't quite know, I didn't want to play a sport, and it was too short to, think about, fashion and modeling, so I was like, let me take a drama class. And I signed up for drama as an elective, and I immediately felt like I found my tribe. People who are outwardly affectionate and a little odd, some of us, and
Wait, what?
right? Some of us, and from there I auditioned and was accepted into the High School for Performing Arts in Houston as an actor. Like a lot of theater people start in acting, and then I never looked back. I've been a theater person ever since. So since 13. And now I'm 51. I mean, 51 until March. Yeah.
When's your birthday?
March 12th,
oh, okay.
The day before
I thought
it
you
closed.
said tomorrow. I was
No.
like, wait, what?
No.
All right. Well, you were talking a little bit earlier about how in college, we were just fetching before, and you were talking about how you worked as a stage manager to get into directing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I thought that was a fascinating conversation.
When I was at high school, I I discovered pretty early I didn't love acting, but my high school was pretty intense. So not only did you have to audition to get in, you had to like re-audition at the end of every year to stay in, and your grades had to be good, and it was very intense. But in my junior year, I took a directing class. And that class was mostly just play analysis. But at the same time, we were doing an Elizabethan drama class where we were in groups of 3, and 2 people had to do a scene, and 1 would direct them in that scene. And then I thought, oh my God, this is what I love. This is what I'm meant to do in theater. So when I was a junior in high school is when I decided I wanted to be a director. And so by the time I got to college, when I said that to some of my professors, they said, well, then if you want to be a director, start with stage management, because stage managers, it's different now, but at the time that they were coming up, stage managers direct the understudies, that's still true, but they also used to direct the touring companies going out of New York. But it's also a great way to see the process, like the entire process of how theater gets made, and how directors talk to designers and actors, and to be in the room while things are happening. So I got, after undergrad, I moved to New York, and within about 3 weeks of being there, I became like an equity stage manager, which is the union for stage managers and actors. Because not only were stage managers become directors way back in the day, but ASMs would sometimes would understudy, and that's why the actors and stage management union are the same, because sometimes the stage managers would understudy one of the roles on stage.
1 paycheck for 2 jobs.
Right.
No.
Right.
Hence why.
Right.
But that's amazing. And from there you transitioned into a professional director, yes?
Yes. When I was at Second Stage, this is how I got my equity card. I walked into an interview I walked into the interview, and the director was finishing up an audition. And he said, oh, thank God you're here. I wanted to have a female stage manager because I have 2 young girls in this play. And I was like, how did you know I was a stage manager? I came for the assistant directing gig. And he was like, oh, yeah, I need an assistant director too. And I said, wait, which one pays more? Right? I got to pay my bills, right? So, and he was like, well, the stage management gig is equity. It's the union. I said, okay, I'll take that one. And then the production manager, who's in charge of all the production, called me and was like, who are you, young girl from Texas, like that I don't know? Can you call a show? Can you work with Tony winners? What? Can you do this job? I was like, sure.
Like, too late, already offered.
Right? And then, yeah. And from there, the artistic director found out that I was interested in directing, and said, there's this fellowship that we're going to be doing. It's the first year of this fellowship. Would you like to apply? Yeah.
That's
I've
fantastic.
been very, very fortunate in my theater career.
And that was at Second Stage in New York.
And Second Stage, which
gorgeous.
at the time was uptown and had a 99-seat off-Broadway. And then when I was leaving New York, had just opened a Midtown location, and now has a Broadway theater as well. So I was mentored by that artistic director early in my directing career.
Carol Rothman.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
smart.
how did you know that you wanted to start your own company? And how did you go about doing so?
When I was in New York, I was always talking to a bunch of artists about starting companies, right? When I was in college, I always thought, if I was a banker, I would make a living doing banking. I'm a theater person. I want to make a living doing theater. But I also want to have like a community and like some stability and like kids and a dog. I have a condo and a cat, so it's not quite like how I imagined it. And so I always wanted to be an artistic director instead of a freelance director, because I wanted to be a part of a company. And Carol Rothman, who ran Second Stage, said to me, you can only start a company with people that you have similar taste. It doesn't have to be the exact same taste, but similar taste. And that became true because I tried to in New York 3 different times, and it wasn't until I got here in San Diego and started working with a bunch of women who I would always like cast them or ask them the AD, and was working with them a lot, and I thought, oh, these are people that have similar tastes as me. And so we started meeting for like a year to think about like what would we like our mission to be, what kind of work do we want to be, what or that we want to do, and then and then we did a lot of self-educate. We couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, so I got a book about how to start a nonprofit in California, and had CDs and forms, right? And so it took longer than maybe a lawyer could have done it, but we got our 501c3 the first time. It was accepted the first time, and so really that's how.
Yeah. I started my own company in Boston way long ago. Did the same thing. Called Equity and said, "What do I do? Just tell me what to do." And they sent me a playbook, basically.
Right. And that's the other thing. The theater community is very generous. So when we didn't know something, we would call one of the big theaters and say, "How do you put together your subscriber brochure, Globe?" And they would say, "Oh, this is kind of, here's some things that you can." Like, everybody was so generous to us.
And what was Moxie's mission? Or is Moxie's mission? It's still
Moxie's
going.
mission is to create more diverse images of women for our culture. And at the time when we because there was lots of little theaters starting to happen, and we thought, what is the need that we need to fulfill, and what are we attracted to, and what need is there? And at the time that we started, only about 17% of plays being produced were written by women, even though half the playwrights graduating from grad school were women. And production is the ultimate for expression of a playwright's art, right? So women were getting lots of awards and lots of readings and workshops, but not productions. So that's where we started. More honest and diverse images of women and producing female playwrights. Primarily female playwrights, and because that was a need, and because of Moxie, San Diego was above the average for producing female playwrights in the country, in a city in the country.
And still going strong.
I'm gonna take that credit. Yes, it's still going strong.
Well, you've been real busy in the last little bit. You've been just
now I am
out.
freelancing, but that's because my kids are like. One's just finished college and one's starting college. Well, is a sophomore now. The pandemic, the first year was at home, and then now.
And you were like almost in a room as early as humanly possible since coming back from COVID. What has it been like returning to the rehearsal room after this time away?
I have to say that for me, it's been like a relief because I'm a person that doesn't know anything about film and television, so Zoom was not my medium. And theater like depends on a live audience, right? And it was hard for me to even watch plays on Zoom because the experience of theater is sort of about that interaction. I'm very influenced by, like, my granddaddy was a preacher in Georgia, and I used to go to church all the time, and for me, theater is very similar. Like, a group of people come together to hear a message that reveals something about their humanity or what they're going through right now, and that is the part that I love about theater. And so during the pandemic, it was very hard. I mean, I worked a lot. I mean, like, can you do this reading on Zoom? But it was never exciting. So being back in the room with, like, artists and, like, collaborating out loud has been great.
So let's talk a little bit about the play at hand. Trouble in Mind.
I'm so excited for you guys to see it.
Excellent. It's so good. Can you tell us a little bit about what the play is about? Has anybody here seen it yet? Seen the production yet? All right. Well, let's talk. Tell us all about it. Tell us what the play's about.
I want you to be able to experience it, how you experience it. So I'm going to be kind of vague, but Trouble in Mind uses a play within a play device to examine questions about racism and sexism and stereotypes. And it's a comedy until it's not. right? It's set in the 50s. It was written in 55, set in 57, actually. Originally was set in 55, and it was running off Broadway, and it was gonna move to Broadway. But they wanted Alice Childress to change the ending, because the ending is a little bit ambiguous in terms, there's no like neat reconciliation. It's not ambiguous, but there's no neat reconciliation. It doesn't have a happy ending. And the producers wanted her to change the ending, so she tried that, and she hated it and ultimately refused, and so her play wasn't produced on Broadway until this year, 67 years later.
It was slated to be the first play on Broadway written by a black woman.
Right, in 1957, but instead, Raisin and the Sun became the first play written by a black woman on Broadway.
And waited almost 7 decades to make its debut, which is just finished its run in December in New York at the Roundabout.
Oh, so last year, but 66 years.
But the history of the play is amazing. It's just like it's astonishing, and in so many ways, the history of the play talks a lot about the themes that the play talks about.
Exactly, this idea of like. This is not a play like, you know, you've seen August Wilson, where it's sort of like what it's like to be African American in this particular decade, or right. This play is really about, so August Wilson sort of is like what it's like to be them then. This play is like what it's like to be us, black people, dealing with a male white power establishment. So that's a little bit of like, and I would say, to that point, one of the young people in the rehearsal room asked me if they had updated the play for the Broadway production. And I said, no. I mean, it's been she rewrote it 5 times, and the estate is like, I mean, like, you know, like in Shakespeare, there's portfolio, like, right. So maybe in the Broadway production, like, because it's been published in a few different versions as well, that they maybe chose this from that and that and that, and then there was an official version. But Alice Childress's words haven't been changed. And so that young person's comments made me both thrilled that she was finding it very relevant to today, and also sad that we haven't come as far as we thought we had.
How old was she when she wrote this?
She was very vague about her age. and there's a line about it in the play, but she was probably 40.
So, and as you kind of alluded to, like that, you know, in this time of the racial reckoning and the social justice movement that's happening in this country, this play is so prescient in the way that it's talking about it, in the way that it's addressing it, but also that nothing has changed. Is like 70 years ago this play was written, and we're still having these exact conversations.
Right, that's exactly right. What has changed is this. And I was just talking to one of the actors about this. What would have seemed like subtle racism to a 1957 audience feels like blatant racism to us today. We've lived through Me Too. There's certain things that would have seemed subtle then. You watch 50s movies and like Dick Tracy's all over what's her name, and like I am like, get your hands off her. Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, there are certain things that were just acceptable then that are just not acceptable now. So one of the tricks we had to do is how to make those things that seem blatant now, but would have been subtle then, subtle for our time. Or subtler, anyway.
How did you do that?
Backing off some of the physicality, for example, or taking a lighter tone. Yeah.
You have this is your second go with this play, right? What is your history of doing this show?
We did this play. It had a little bit of a renaissance, like about 7 to 10 years ago. Like Arena Stage did it in DC, and like just regionally some places. Moxie did it because I was looking for a classic at Moxie that fit our mission, written by a woman, defies stereotypes, that kind of thing. and so a colleague suggested this play, and I read it and loved it. And at that time, I was, because I knew Alice Childress, I knew the Wedding Band, but I didn't know this play. And so it was like a discovery. This time, because we've all lived through a pandemic and a social justice reckoning, and there was a document that written by BIPOC artists called "We See You, White American Theater" that listed some requests or demands for the American theater. And so doing this play now, after all of that, the play is still the play, but we no longer have the same. Some of us no longer have the same blinders on that we've had before, I think. So it feels immediate in a way that the Moxie production was like about stereotypes, but this really is this right now, because of the time we're living in, feels like written for our time.
Yeah. And so it's always interesting revisiting a piece, right? Because it's like, we did it before, am I going to do it the same way again? What did I learn about it? What did I want to change? What's it been like for you to revisit this?
I knew I was going to get this question, but for me, whenever I direct a play, I'm a director who I don't see in the images. Like some directors have concepts and they make all the things fit but I'm a person who's moved by words. I love language and the way playwrights use language. And so it was like I knew the play, I had worked on it before, but like I didn't know the artist because they were all going to be new except one of them. And really, theater is a collaborative art. I don't work my best dictating what I think how the thing should go. I want to hear, if you're my actor, I want to hear your ideas about it, and I want to give this is what's happening in this moment. How you interpret that is completely different than how a different actor would interpret it. It's still the same thing. It's still the thing that happens. It just is a different person making it happen, right? Like from a different point of view and different experiences. And so I was very open to who the artists were in the room.
Was there anything that one of the things I find fascinating about this show is like the tonality of it, because as a play that's rehearsing a play, the rehearsal of the play can end up being a comment upon that play in that way. So it's like this is the play that we don't actually get to see, but we get to hear some lines of it, and then there's a rehearsal within the performance. So there needs to be a subtle shift in temperament, right? Between what acting is in the world that we've established and then what is acting, like the inception moment of it when you go the dream within the dream. Right. How do you find that tone and balance it and like pay reverence to what's there without setting it up but making it still fun?
I mean, like the play's a comedy, but I'm not funny, so you got to cast funny people. I mean, like that kind of thing. But also, I try, whenever I direct comedy, I always like let them be funny and make sure that it's truthful. So sometimes when I direct a comedy, it looks like a tragedy because the actors are having that night where they're playing like all the stuff underneath that I made sure was real, without covering it back up. But I'll take that because that means that the moments are real, right, for them, that they believe what they say. So I always preach, make the play true. And so if the director in the play, in Trouble in Mind, cast these actors, he cast them because they were good. So be good actors in the play. Like, let's make the play true. So that's a part of it. And then I used to and then it has that little bit of 50s, like, it has that kind of, let's give it a like Gone with the Wind edge, like let's do the things that are popular at the time, and so, but making it honest.
Yeah, in that way of like 1950 style was a little bit different from you know, 2020 style. You know,
Right, exactly.
Less method and less dug in. I'm not going to
Yeah.
gain 60 pounds. I'll put on a.
Oh, put on,
Oh.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, no, totally. Right. And except the method is just starting to come in. Like the director in this play is like, I got this new way of working. Right. You gotta believe. So, yeah.
It was really fun in that way.
Yes.
I want to open it up to your questions because we have a nice small group. We can like maybe get to a couple before Alicia has to go. Yes, sir.
So you said a little bit ago that you work with the actors, and every play is different, every production is different because the actors have different interpretations. So to what extent did you know the actors? Did you have any role in choosing them?
Do I know the actors?
Did you choose the actors for the show?
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a great casting team. Half of the actors come right here. So, 3 of them went to USD O Globe Shiley graduate program. So,
One is a current student.
yeah, one is a current student. And because I ran Moxie and I'm a local director here, it's important to me to use and the Globe really honored that. And I was like, anybody who wants to see me, I will see them. Because that's my obligation as an artist working in a community, and not like obligation in a bad way, but like I want to. Like this is where I live, and I care about the people who live here, and that they work. So there's that, and for me this time, it wasn't just about, because of the time we're living, about good actors, because I knew the Globe and the casting agents would provide good actors. It was also, I wanted it, because we have to tackle some tricky subjects, I wanted it to be good people who could work with grace when any of us like made mistakes, right? Like it's so completely impossible to all agree about race, right? It is. And so, like, I could be sitting on a panel with 10 black women discussing the issues facing black women, and we wouldn't agree, right? Because we're not the same. So, like, I wanted to be able to work with people who were not just good actors, but good people who could have conversation, who could give each other grace, to make mistakes, to say. And we have vocabulary, like if somebody crosses one of your boundaries, you say, ouch. And then the person who crossed that boundary says, oops. And then we don't, and that comes out of intimacy directing, but it is a quick way and a painless way to go, that never, I gave permission for that, it never happened with our particular team. But I think putting it on the table, like, you might make mistakes and say something you didn't mean, and it might offend somebody else in the room, and they might say, ouch. And then you know. Now I know. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Right? And then we can keep working. Because, and it didn't actually come up, but I think the discussion of it came up.
No. And it's one of the things that we talk about a lot of times in casting is like we have a little acronym called LTS, which means life's too short.
Yes.
You know,
the Globe did a great. I mean, like, it's the process I just had is rare. Where like every day is a joy to come to work. Every day is a joy to be in the room and create and find new things with people. Even like in these moments where I'm like, you guys, I've seen this scene 1,000 times. When are we gonna get this right? Even then, it was. I mean. Everybody's working at the top of their game to the best of their ability and using all their everything to give you like a great production, to tell this story, right? And that has been a joy.
It always helps to have a great leader.
Aw.
So, you had a question, sir?
Yes. Of course, I think we're seeing it next week. So, certain plays, some types of theater have something like a device. Like someone in the play is actually they're not talking to each other, but then they're saying something to the audience directly.
Oh, direct address. No, there's no direct address here. No.
Any other kind
but there is like it's a play within a play. So you'll get to see like the company come together on first rehearsal, the very first rehearsal of a play, the first day of rehearsal of a play, and then you'll get to see some of the rehearsal of the play that they're doing. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I read that the play within the play is about a lynching.
Yes.
And you talked about elements of comedy. How does that work?
You gotta come and see how it works. I'm gonna just tell you that it works. And that's Alice Childress's brilliance, not mine. But it is the same thing. But really, like simply what it is in the play, the plot really is that an integrated cast comes together to do a social justice play on Broadway about lynching. So they're making a play that they hope will speak to their time. But the comedy comes from like you watching artists like how they negotiate their egos or each other's or right.
Their neuroses.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you made any changes since you were in previews? Since you were part of the last
Yes.
Have you made any changes? So I'm just going to repeat it to make sure everybody can hear. Have you made any changes to the show since you've been in previews?
Not major changes, but little like this seems too dark, so let's brighten this cue and some. Speaking of what I talked about before about an audience then and now, like figuring out those moments that might, because it's really important to me that the conflict in the play is nuanced, and not like this side obviously right and this side obviously wrong, but because that's not how the world works and that's not how humans work. And so, not that Alice Childress doesn't have a point of view. She totally does. So I'm not saying that. But it's boring if you can figure that out. Or if you can just write off one person right away. I mean, we're human. And so she's not always great and he's not always bad. Right? That was important. So finding the moments where I could fine-tune that stuff I've been doing over the last few since the first preview.
And it's interesting with an audience because you get that
Right.
feedback of like, how's the room feel? What's the vibe? Are they laughing at this or not? And those things you don't get when you've run it for 4 times in a rehearsal room with the same 3 people watching.
Right.
So
And
it really helps.
Yeah. I will say this. I'm glad you said that, Justin. Like, this is the kind of play that, I mean, I don't know, like, culturally if this is right for you, but it's like, you're going to want to talk back. Like, for me, that's easy. But, like, it is the kind of play that's, like, kind of sometimes spurs you to want to be like, yes.
And people do,
And people do.
which is great.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think you said, Justin, that you are an artist in residence here.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What do you do as an artist in residence?
I am.
Sorry, but forgive me. I'm slacking my duties as a resident. What do you do as a resident artist?
Well, lately I've been doing this, but that's not as a resident artist necessarily. I'm a part of the artistics team and an adjunct. It's like being an adjunct professor, isn't it? and so right now we're talking season planning. Yeah.
So in our season planning last year, so the group came on in April while we were trying to figure out, are we going to do plays again?
Right.
So a lot of the conversations were, when are we how do we get back? And when we do, what are the things that we do? And there are a lot of things on the table, and there was a lot of things also in conversations with the 4 resident artists about like, this is how the Globe works. You know, this is how actually the sausage gets made in lots of ways, because it's not just easy. It's not as easy as just saying, what play should I do? The Odd Couple, let's go.
Right.
You know, like there's a lot of stuff that you have to do that goes into it, and like, you know, the history of what's been done, our audience demographics, our budgeting process, you know, our marketing teams, all the things. There's input from all different places, and then bringing everybody up to speed so we all understand we can talk about everything that goes into it.
Right.
because it has to be an open and honest conversation.
Yeah.
And that was a really, I found, astounding process to be able to talk about for myself, and also because it's like you had to kind of step back and be like, how do we actually do it? Oh yeah, these are all the things that we have to talk about. So, sorry, I'm answering the question for you. I apologize.
That's perfect. But for some of my colleagues, this was like new information because they're like designer or freelance artist. But because I was at Moxie, what's interesting to me is how it happens at this scale. And that essentially, I learned this when I was in New York and walked off the street and got an equity card. That the work is just the work, right? Like at every level. It's surprising how similar it is. And so, like, every theater doesn't have enough money, no matter what their budget size is, or enough time, so that's interesting. And but what's also been fascinating is, and also heartwarming, is how much thought goes into the process of choosing the work. And like, Trouble in Mind is the kind of play that the Globe does well. It's a period piece. Because the shops here are so good, the prop shop and the costume shop, and the scenery is like perfectly crafted, right? Like, it's so like that they want to tell this story at this time. It aligns with my personal mission. Like, I'm only interested in doing work that has impact. And the Globe is committed to doing work, making theater that matters. And so those are aligned.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I would think
Yes.
it'd be a little difficult to make sure that the time period isn't distracting. I mean, they were pretty cool clothes back then.
So that's a great question. Is the idea of time period is how to handle period in a deft way where it's not a send up of the time, or how do you deftly navigate that, but have you land in that period so you know when you walk in that theater you're in 1950 and not 1990 or 2020?
Okay, this is gonna. I don't know how this is gonna sound, but I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the time period. I just spent all my time thinking about the play, and trusting that if we said it was 1957, that you would believe it's 1957, and the cost. Let me backtrack. The designers all did the research, so the set looks like a theater from the 50s, right? And then when I'm talking with the set designer, I'm like, I love this thing from backstage theaters in the 50s, and he's like, I love this thing from, or what would the loading door look like? What would a light board look like in 1957? So the details are where the time period is.
And those designers, Lawrence Moten, the set designer, and Nikki Smith, the costume designer, are just special.
Yeah, and they do their work based on research. They're not gonna like imagine what it looked like. They are gonna look it up and then create from there.
Yeah, it's always fascinating. Like, you'll see this light board that's on stage, and these are pictures of a light board from 1955, and our prop shop recreates it.
Yes.
So that builds every knob and everything, and it's all functional because they are changing the lights. So it's really neat in how they do that, and our shops pride themselves in those details.
Yeah.
It's where they really geek out. You
And
know?
it's so good that I had to be like, you can't play with that light board. We got to do the play. It's not about a light board.
Well, I think we should wrap up here and let Delisa get in because she has to go see the show tonight and give some notes and keep working. We open on Thursday, which is really exciting. I'd like to thank you all for coming and being a part of tonight's Vicki and Carl Zeiger Insight Seminar, live and in person in the under the stars in the Craig Knoll Garden.
Yes.
Thank you for braving the elements with us. And thank you to Delisa for all your wonderful time and beautiful insight. It's wonderful to be able to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.